Alright, welcome back to the SuperCoach Enough channel. In this video, something a little bit different. We're still very much in the team picker stage. SuperCoach isn't open quite yet for 2025. But I guess one of the big talking points so far this preseason, or off-season I guess, preseason probably kicks off around when the SuperCoach game actually opens. But it's talking about the idea of using this flex position. So, couple of different opinions, but I guess a very strong opinion is looking at, going big with fullbacks and starting with 3 big fullbacks. A lot of teams I've seen sort of gone away from that, partly because there's a nice looking cheapie option, potentially as many as 2 cheapie options. There's a couple of rumours about Chevy Stewart at the Raiders might be an option to start the season at fullback. But I thought, just as a bit of a thought experiment, having a play around, bit of a slow day, or this slow afternoon at the time of recording, but having a look at what the team could look like if we were to go, big at the back, to use the fantasy Premier League type jargon. So I sort of tried to keep it a bit hidden so you couldn't necessarily see the fullbacks, but I will scroll up a little bit, just enough so that you can see. And what I've done is I've started with essentially the 3 fullbacks I'd like to have by the end of the season. And so with those guys, I've gone with Tom Trbojevic, Latrell Mitchell, and Scott Drinkwater. I guess, there is plenty of great options. The top 7, maybe, you could even include Kinney, Campbell, although Campbell's probably, if you're going to play him, you play him at 5'8". And even down to some of the options like the Hammer and Pappenhausen. So people might be toying with any combination of them. But I guess just the way I see it is, it's probably just a process of elimination. Teddy, he's probably going to be the man at the Roosters this year. But basically a new halves combination, new centre combination as well, with both Swaliti and Manu gone. So I think it's just going to take a little while for them to click. Tedesco could be an interesting pod for the run home. Dylan Edwards, a great choice, but probably, the front runner to play for New South Wales and Origin. And I guess also he does have that ceiling, but probably has a slightly lower floor as well than some of these other guys potentially. Kalen Ponga, I think, the Knights a bit unsettled in the halves. Don't really know who's going to play there. So again, he'll probably be the main man, but I guess just the amount of service he's going to get is questionable. And Reece Walsh, just with the new coach, just want to take a bit of time to see how they click at the Broncos. So that sort of leaves you with these other 3. Tom Trbojevic, if I had to pick one to be number 1, I'd probably have him. After that, Latrell and Scott Drinkwater, goal kicking probably helps both of them. Latrell in that sort of attacking left edge is very juicy as well, looking fit from some preseason photos that came out recently. Scotty Drinkwater sort of taken more responsibility with Townsend gone. They're at the Cowboys, so they're sort of my pick for the top 3. Again, open to debate. You can probably, if you need to save a bit of money, you can chop Latrell to Kalen if you prefer. Pick whichever you like. But I guess the idea is, how do we build the team around them? And so I guess just sort of working backwards, the first thing is you probably do need to cut a couple of corners at wing centre. In saying that, it's probably something I'm looking to avoid this year. I'll sort of do it more of a updated team that I'm actually going with when the game opens, and discuss it a bit more then. But I think there is a bit of value around the 500k mark. So basically I've tried to dot a few of them in with Greg Marzu at the Knights. I just sort of bagged out Kalen Ponga about not getting service. But if he gets the ball on that left edge, Bradman Best, and then this guy on the end of it, he could bounce back a bit from what was a bit of a disrupted season last year. Campbell Graham's very popular um, on that. He'll be on the right edge there for the Rabbitohs, but we know what he's capable of, and he can definitely outpace his $500,000 price point. Drell Skelton I've talked about previously as well. Just sort of like Greg Marzu, just tackle busting machine. Just question marks about how much he'll get at the Tigers. But you'd imagine, based on what they've dished up in the past, that he would at least get the start. And like I said, with tackle bust and stuff, he is capable of outscoring his price. Casey McLean, I've got in. I've sort of had Jesse McLean sitting there hoping he'll get in, but the more I look at it, I think it's Casey's spot first. There is an argument to sort of carry McLean on the bench because he's probably the next man up if there's an injury almost anywhere in the back line. I think he can slot in pretty much anywhere in there. So if you are looking for another cheapie, so you could potentially, cash out one of these guys to make that happen. Munro hopefully gets a left wing spot, outside of that combo of Cody, Latrell, Jack Whiten. Pretty nice spot to be while AJ's out. If he's on the right edge, I probably will just switch to, it'll probably be Tass gets the spot on the wing, just because, I want to target that left wing spot at the Rabbitohs. In the halves, again, we'll probably have to cut back a little bit from what I've had previously. I've kept Cleary, though, just because I think, you've got to have him in the conversation for captaincy every week, provided he comes back healthy from his shoulder. Obviously, if he's out, you could go to a Hines or, Dylan Brown, even with the way this team's set up currently. And Sandon Smith, had to move him from hooker, just, again, you can't have all the guns if you're going with three expensive fullbacks to start. So he slots into the halfback bench spot pretty comfortably. At 5'8", I've thrown up KO Weeks. I'd assume he's the front runner for the fullback position. So I guess, we're talking about going big at fullback. We're actually squeezing a fourth fullback in our team by playing him at 5'8". That's a little bit of a discount from a Munster, Dylan Brown, even to Jerome Luai's fairly popular. A few people talking up Matty Burton, wherever he sits. He's in the 5'8" spot, that's why. So those sort of options is just that little bit cheaper, which does allow us to get those, three gun fullbacks. And Luke Metcalf, so one I've already talked about, potentially gets the goal kicking ahead of Tamari Martin, Harris DeVita. It's basically a three-way go for the two spots. But based on what I've seen previously, I think Metcalf is the most likely. Seems to be very popular when he's fit. That's always the question mark with him, is fitness. So probably where I guess we cut a lot of cash out is in the second row. And, there seems to be a few potential cheapies. I don't imagine all of these guys will get up. If they did, this does make the three fullbacks a bit easier. But I've put Isaiah Papali'i in there, mostly just to spend up most of the cash. But obviously, if you have a preferred option that's a bit cheaper, you certainly could go that way. But I guess people are hyped about him going from the Tigers to the Panthers. That increase in attacking output potentially. Jack Bird, if he gets the lock position there at the Tigers, might not be the most productive in terms of scoring. I guess, those smaller type locks are very much more distributing types rather than the workhorse types. But at his price point and his, on-fieldness, he'll probably get a start if that's the case. Fini Fuiaki, hopefully he gets that edge spot. If it goes to Gilbert, well, we haven't got the cash. We'd have to chop up Papali'i potentially. Kobe Hetherington, sounds like Madge wants to play him at lock, move Carrigan into the front row alongside Payne Haas. And I guess, it's probably his preferred position at lock. So if he got a few more minutes there, tackles and runs and that sort of thing, he'll definitely make a bit of cash. And then Nicholson and Wong, probably, outside chances to get those starting edge spots with a few, forwards vacating at the Raiders and the Roosters respectively. But sort of need a few things to fall into place there. Front row, Tino, we've talked about. Obviously with the budget, couldn't afford a Terrell May. I know he's very popular, but for the purpose of this, Tino would be the one. Nafahu White and Corey Horsburgh are both players I'm probably trying to get in. It does depend on whether Horsburgh can force his way back into the 17. But again, a bit like Latrell, looks like he's cut a bit of the excess weight, which hopefully leads to increased fitness and might curry favour with Ricky. And then the hookers, so Mamazelis, we've still got Blake Moses, one that's sort of been popping up a bit in the chat about, sort of impressing Madge with his work rate. And does look like he's got the potential to be a long-term option at 9. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did get the start at the Bronx. Obviously, wouldn't be an 80-minute role. You'd imagine they've still got Billy Walters, I think Corey Pakes, those sort of guys are still there as well. So a bit of competition, but again, if we're looking for the cheapies, I think they're in the hookers. Potentially a few in the second row. There's always a couple in the centres. Maybe like Sandon Smith in your halves, and making those what's the word? Considerations. That's not the word. Compromises. There we go. I've got it eventually. Making those compromises through the rest of your team does give you the edge in terms of having these 3 high-scoring players. So again, it's on the way up. It's probably not the way I'm looking to go. Obviously, a lot of people are pretty hot on Iongi to start at fullback. They moved Gutherson away for a reason, to open the door for this sort of kid. Like I said, Chevy Stewart, if he gets up to, you could flip it and we could be talking about, well, do you double cheapie fullback and the flex position and just, really pack out the rest of your side. So maybe if that's something you're interested in looking at, maybe give us a little comment in the area below this video. Obviously, if you're enjoying the NRL SuperCoach content, even though it's not up and running yet, give us a like, subscribe for all the fantasy sports content on the channel. Other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.